This is the Losi LMT, so LMT, probably for Losi monster truck. Now, these are very, very cool scale-looking vehicles. You can see the exhaust here pointing down, so there's one on each side. Do like the frame. I like the way everything looks. So as far as monster trucks, this definitely looks the part. Your axles, they are massive. They are quite large. You don't have to worry about it on 2S really hitting something and breaking them. Well, it depends on the system that you're running. If you're running a Tekin HD Pro 4 4300 kV, that is a very strong, very fast system. I mean, that is an amazing system for a truck like this, but most people are probably not going to buy that system. But it's a system that I would strongly recommend. I would strongly recommend getting the Tekin HD Pro 4 4300 kV. That's longer can. I believe it's 62 millimeters, 62.5, somewhere around there. I would show it to you, but it's current. Oh, actually, I have it in my Vortec here. Give me one moment. I actually thought I had removed it, but I just remembered it's still in here. All right. That's the system. So that system is very powerful, very fast. If you have not watched my speed runs with that Vortec, it does over 60 miles per hour, so over 100 kilometers. I believe it does 114 kilometers per hour. You can watch the speed video and then see everything that I did to it. But it's still in there. I'm probably going to keep it there, to be honest. But that system is actually great on one of these trucks. That system I had in a Stampede. Oh my God, that thing would rip. I would constantly wheelie. It was an insane amount of power for 2S. So that's really the system you want to go for in here. Now this one, we're going to go more of a budget build. So we're going to go with the School RC. School RC, these hold up very, very well. You just have to gear down because they do like to get hot. But I mean, considering the ESC and the motor are probably around $60 as of the time of this video, you can't beat that for a budget build. Now, this is the roller. The rollers, I can't remember the price of the rollers. Maybe the rollers are about $500, $450, can't remember. You can buy the full vehicle for maybe about $650. Maybe the rollers are less. They're probably closer to 400, 450. I cannot remember, honestly. You can put it in the comments below. But I like the rollers because you can pick and choose your electronics. And this one, even this budget build, will still be less expensive than buying the RTR. Now, quick little note, if you've never had one of these, you have body clips down the bottom right here. So right here. And then the other side, and then two down here. Once you remove those, then you can flip this up and over. So that will just go over like that, and then you can access most of the things. Battery strap, you can fit a shorty or a full battery. This is flexible enough for you to fit a 3S. Let me go ahead and secure this. Now, I'll be honest, unless you have smaller hands, it's kind of a pain to access. To clip this on and clip it off. I mean, it's very uncomfortable to fit a hand in there. So find a child, and that'll work. Now this will stretch up enough, and I do not recommend more than 3S. To be honest, I don't really recommend more than 2S on something like this. But well, it depends. 3S on this School RC. 3S, it'll probably perform similar to that Tekin system on 2S. That's something else to keep in mind. Now I'm going to gear this low for that reason, so I'm going to start with a 12-tooth pinion, and I'm just going to leave it there, but you can actually go much higher. 4S I would not recommend for this vehicle, and the reason why is, yes, you can call this a basher, but it's not an extreme basher. What's going to end up happening if you look at the suspension and how the frame is, you're going to bend these. So if you take a hard impact off on the side as you're landing, just right on here, you're going to end up bending these plates. Now, these are two-piece, so they actually attach right in here, but don't be surprised if you end up bending this and this, or just this right here. So you'll probably bend this one and have to replace that one. You may bend them both. And that's a bit of an issue. And aluminum is nice, but one of the things with aluminum versus plastic is the following. Plastic will flex, but sometimes it'll break, and aluminum will generally not break where plastic breaks. But chances are, if you take a hard enough impact where plastic would break, the aluminum probably bent and you may or may not notice it, but it will affect the way a vehicle drives. So a downside is actually this design. If you want to truly overpower it, I strongly recommend you do not overpower this vehicle. 2S is perfect, 3S, depending on what you're running. Now, to access the motor mount is somewhat of a pain. This gets in the way. There's one screw in here. This is the cover. So the screw is actually right in here. So you can do two things. This is actually flexible enough to where you can flex this up and then stick a driver through it and pull the screw out. If you do not remove the screw fully, it's going to be a bit of a pain to actually pull this because this slides up. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, one of the nice things, I'm going to go ahead and close this for now so I can flip this over. Gearing is very easy. This is not an infinite mesh system, so it is very specific. But where some companies use letters, this actually uses the numbers. So that's a 12-tooth pinion, 13. So you can go up to a 16-tooth pinion. The school system will not handle the 16-tooth. It'll get too hot. Maybe if you want to do a speed run or two, or if you have a massive heatsink with a massive fan, you can probably get away with it. Now, even though they overheat, School surprisingly can handle heat. Surprisingly. If you throw a bearing, just replace the bearings. But the Tekin can actually handle that power, and it's crazy fast on 2S. So that would be my recommendation. But Tekin staying over there, this is actually a build that was requested, so I'm building it this way. And I'm going to get started with the motor. Now the servo, I'm going to put a temporary servo on there. So the servo that I end up installing is not going to be the actual servo that will be on here. But the motor. So the motor, I'm going to bend these wires back, and the motor goes in through this side. So it goes through the left of the vehicle. So vehicle's facing that way, left, right. And it'll just go in through here. And like I said, because it's labeled, I'm just going to go 12 because 12 is the pinion I will be using. Now this looks upside down on the camera, but it's not upside down. The screws that I'm going to be using to hold the motor will be button screws. They are 10mm screws, which, give me a moment. I've placed them under the cover, I believe. Ah, here they are. They were over here. It's a 2.5mm driver. So these are 10mm button screws that I'm going to be using. You don't need anything longer than that, and I do not recommend anything shorter as well. But here we go. I just need to see where's the hole. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to get it started. Now that it's holding the motor, I'll just grab the other screw. And touch the thread lock. Make sure that you have thread lock on these. That is very important. If you do not, they will back out. And then if they back out, it's not really damaging the motor, it's just the gears. You'll destroy the gears if you don't notice it in time. All right. The transmission gears, these are actually pre-greased, so there is grease in here. Now, if you have a non-roller, so let's just say you bought the actual RTR and you're swapping out the system, this is the way you would access everything. So process is the same. Here we go. Now I can go ahead and set the pinion. Now the pinion, the little oppressor screw, this little set screw or grub screw, that goes toward the motor. So this will just sit in here. And I will slide it through. Not. This is not working. All right, that is correct. All right, it's just me. I'm not aiming correctly. Let me look at the shaft. All right. So the way this is cut, since these cuts don't go all the way through, it's hitting the teeth of the spur. So I'm gonna just go ahead and loosen it. I'm actually going to remove one of the screws just so I have a little more space. So that's something that you can do. Now this does fit perfectly, and the reason why I know this is because I just slid this the other way and it went through. So this mounting system is very precise. It's just the gear. So if you're mounting a 12, you're probably not going to have enough space. Actually, now that it's loose, I wonder if it'll have enough wiggle room so I don't have to remove the entire thing. That'd be nice. Perfect. So just loosen it a little and you will be fine. There it is. And now I can go ahead and tighten everything since this is lined up. Now, motor actually spun a little. All right, here we go. All right, and that is it. So this spins. Now, something about these trucks, they do have, so if you look at the rear, all right, so it's an open differential. And the fact that I can spin one wheel, you know that the front is also open. But the differential grease is actually quite thick, so even if one is spinning, it wants to spin the others. If you're running 2S, that's going to be perfect. I wouldn't worry about it. If you're running something greater, such as 3S, or even that Tekin system, you may diff out the front when you're taking turns. And then again, you shouldn't be taking really fast turns with this. You're just going to flip the truck over. That's something else to keep in mind. Now, I can go ahead and put this cover on. Now this screw, I did not remove it. I'm going to go ahead and remove the screw because it'll just make it easier. And this just slides on and then it just clips on. So slide it at an angle. I'm going to slide it at an angle like this and then it'll just cover up. So it is. Now I will lift this plastic up just a tad. Actually, I'm going to grab the driver. Well, no. Now I'm being stubborn. And that's what happens. All right, so I will grab the driver, set it, and then push the plastic out of the way. You can remove this. The only thing I will, well, no, it's not the only thing. I'm going to mention a variety of things. It's somewhat of a pain to work on some of the parts of this vehicle. And the reason why is many components get in the way. I do appreciate the scale. I appreciate the way it looks, but things here in the middle just get in the way. This piece of plastic gets in the way. Now, could I remove it? Absolutely. Why did I choose not to remove it? Because I want to suffer. No, I'm kidding. The reason why I will show you in a bit. There's other screws that get in the way. Now I'm backing it out because I missed. All right, there we go. Now I can drive this in. So I'm driving this in. I'll have to say that the weak point on these vehicles is definitely the chassis. These side plates, these are the weakest point. But as long as you take hits front, back, you're fine. The problem is hitting at an angle. That's really the issue. But this is meshed wonderfully. And now to show you the complication about removing these, in order to remove this, this is the part that's getting in the way, but on the other side. Now everything's blending in because of the light, but you have a screw over here, and here, let's see. This is the one you remove. Actually, that's it. So you just have to remove these and these, but then you'll loosen some other plastic. So I'll take back what I said. It's the center brace that's a pain, because that one you have to go at an angle for the center brace. So yes, you can remove this. It's just 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that'll be fine. All right. Now that we have this, the receiver I already went ahead and installed. I did not see an antenna tube, but I do have one lying about. So I'm just going to look for that one, then install that one, and then just put a little set screw in there to hold the antenna tube, and that is it. The receiver box, these screws are way too long. They don't have to be this long. These are probably 20 millimeters. Let's go ahead and see. Yeah, they're not that long. 16, so these are 16s. But before I continue on here, Ghoul RC, so to give you an example, this copperhead would fit perfectly. Copperhead system is a great system. This one you can go up to 4S. So this is something that might be helpful as far as space. You have a lot of space. Mama Monster X, there's no need. This vehicle cannot handle it really. Yes, there's people that are running those systems out there. You're gonna end up breaking stuff or bending the chassis. Just keep that in mind. So there's really no need to overpower. Could you fit one? Sure, you can grind this and then you might have enough space. Let me measure that for you. So I'll give you an approximation. So you have about 45.5 millimeters here. And then over here, we're looking at about 44.5. So about 44.5, 45.5 here. And then, I mean, you can go all the way out to here. So keep that in mind. All right, now the ESC. So I have the wires here. Now the ESC I will be mounting this way with the connector here. Now Ghoul comes with Deans, and there's a lot of people that already run Deans, so this is great. I usually run 5mm connectors, so I do have one 5mm, one Deans to 5mm adapter. I just prefer 5mm. I can't remember. Long ago, I used to have 4mm stuff. Not anymore. These wires, I should have run the wires through here first. They go in through these holes, right in here, before setting the ESC. All right, ESC, just remember ESC will go into channel 2, and generally the plastic part faces down, so if you look at the letters, down would be back in this case, the way I mounted this. So it'll go here, so channel 2 will go there. Servo, this is temporary. I'm not going to leave this one in. This is actually an amazing servo. If you're doing a build, so one of the reasons why you want the roller is you can either go inexpensive with Ghoul and it'll be less expensive to get the roller, or you can just get some actual quality electronics. Well, better quality electronics. The stock electronics that come in the regular LMT are fine. They're good enough. But for example, that Tekin 2S system that I told you about with this ProTech, this is an amazing servo. Is this servo overkill for this? Probably. But they are very, very smooth, very, very strong. The reason why I would still recommend going with something like this, this is over 500 ounce inches. I can't remember what that is in kilograms. It's probably close to 40 kilograms per centimeter, or kilogram centimeters, I should say, not per, but kilogram centimeters. The reason why is the servo will last a lot longer. It's not going to tire out. If you get a servo on something like this, if you get something that is under, I would say, 230 ounce inches, because of the weight of the wheels and tires, that servo will eventually tire out and you will have to replace it. Something that you notice over time, the motor just starts giving out versus something stronger. Is this the correct direction? Just double check. I may have put this in reverse. Nope, that is the correct direction. Perfect. All right. And this is it. So I'm just going to tuck these in here. And this will go in here. The switch I will actually mount on top. And I'll mount it here and there'll be enough slack to where I can lift this. No problem. But let me go ahead and just place the screws. Another system that is a very nice system that most people would probably not think about is the Castle Creations. Castle Creations has, well, with that copperhead, has a motor. It is a 1412 series, I believe. It's the motor can handle 4S as well, but it's high KVs. It's 30. Here, let's see. I actually happen to have it right here. This one right here, 3200. So it's a 1412 3200. This is the motor. This is actually, I would say, for something that's more of a budget, this is probably the best system you can get. This is what I would strongly recommend getting for a vehicle like this. Now this is going on something else. I'm actually going to put that, I'm going to try that out on a Fortec. So the Fortec that you just saw, I'm going to take that system out, test that one just for fun. If you haven't seen my Fortec videos, I have a few. But for a bashing touring car, let's say, if there is such a thing, I'm going to say there is, Fortecs, I really do enjoy Fortecs. There's a few modifications that need to be done though on them if you want to turn them into speed demons. I do have a video on the must upgrades. Let's see. All right. And let's see. Here we go. Now I'm just matching the colors and I'm making sure this is closed and tight. All right. And these, you can leave them as, you can just tuck them in there and everything will fit perfectly. So the only thing I have to do now is the servo. Now the servo is pretty straightforward. I'm going to need some button screws, so give me a moment. Okay, and I have them right over here. Now some of these servos, when you buy them, sometimes they come with these little rubber inserts. You could use little rubber inserts on the screws that are provided. The ProTech, this one actually comes with these aluminum inserts that you place in here. In something like this, you can definitely use them because you have the clearance. You have to drop a screw for good luck. But you do not need them. Now you're threading into plastic. Because you're threading into plastic, you do not need thread lock. Now here I'm using 10mm screws. You could use 8, which 8 would, yeah, 8 is probably all you need. These just happen to be the ones that I have. So let me go ahead and just tighten the servo screws. All right, let's see. now I have to set this. So you do get a servo saver already built in, even in the roller. And this will just go in here. And I'm just going to set it where it catches, and I'm going to use the screw to drive it in. Now there is some thread lock compound here. This is just a 10mm screw. So the servo horn, this is plastic, so the teeth in the servo horn are plastic. That's the reason why you want to make sure that you line up the teeth with the teeth of the servo, because these are metal. So if they're not lined up properly, this will cut into the plastic and it could damage the servo horn. So that's something that you need to consider. This is a 25 tooth, and do not over tighten this. Snug is all you need. The most important thing, to be honest, when it comes to the steering, and I mentioned this in many of my other videos, is make sure to run power through the servo so that the servo's in the neutral position. And then when you're putting the servo horn, make sure these are neutral, or as close to as possible, then install it. That way you can just do fine adjustments using the trim of your transmitter afterwards, instead of ending up with something like this and then you go all the way on your trim. Sometimes you'll run out of trim, and that can mess up your steering, because then you'll steer fully one way, but then you'll run out of steering the other direction. Just mechanically, you'll run out of it in your servo. So that's a potential problem, at which point you would have to just remove the horn, make sure it's neutral, and do it all over again. But that is it. So all of the electronics are installed. Now I just need to put a fully charged battery in it and run it.
What? Oh, my hair! My tongue! My rod!